A leader in the Caribbean, facing down U.S. warships and explicit threats, has sent an urgent plea to America's global rivals, Russia, China, and Iran, demanding military hardware right next door.
This situation is, it's one of the most intense geopolitical flashpoints we've seen in the Western Hemisphere in years. The Venezuelan leader, Nicolás Maduro, isn't just asking for, diplomatic support.
No, not at all.
He's requesting new missile systems, radar upgrades, and critical repairs for his entire fighter jet fleet.
And our mission today is a deep dive into this pressure cooker. We've got sources detailing this aggressive two-pronged U.S. strategy, which, let's be honest, is aimed squarely at regime change.
Right.
We'll look at Maduro's frantic military wish list and the grim but essential truth about whether Russia, his longest-standing backer, can actually deliver, given the immense drain of its own war.
And that's the core of it. The clash here is really about global power. The U.S. is using its geographical advantage to challenge a key autocratic regime in its backyard. And by doing that, it's forcing Moscow to show its hand, to reveal the true limits of its global reach.
So what was the catalyst? Tell us about the acceleration here.
Okay, so the critical news hook, it happened immediately after U.S. President Trump authorized targeted strikes.
On what specifically?
On suspected drug trafficking vessels leaving Venezuela. And this wasn't just a threat. Warships were deployed. The president himself even hinted at potential ground operations.
And he said he could do it without Congress.
Right.
For national security reasons.
Exactly. That decisive aggression from Washington, it just instantly changed the entire calculation for Maduro.
So we're talking about real kinetic action in the Caribbean, not just sanctions and, strongly worded statements. And that aggression is what prompted Maduro's desperate, immediate request for heavy Russian assistance. It's a move to insert Moscow and Tehran directly into America's security sphere.
Okay, let's really unpack this escalation. What exactly triggered Maduro's panic, and what specific military hardware did he ask for?
Well, the trigger was the dual nature of the U.S. intent.
Right.
Publicly, the stated goal is counter-narcotics.
Right.
The U.S. government launched this whole campaign portraying Maduro not just as a corrupt president, but as the head of a drug trafficking and terrorist organization.
So they're painting him as a direct threat to U.S. security.
A direct threat. And here's the key insight from the sources we can't overlook. Some U.S. officials have privately confirmed the real goal is outright regime change.
The counter-narcotics effort is the public excuse.
It's the public facade for a campaign designed to destabilize and, well, eventually remove him.
So Maduro isn't worried about an investigation. He's worried about an invasion.
Exactly. Which is why he appealed so urgently to Russia, China, and Iran. He denies all the drug accusations, of course. He claims the U.S. just wants to seize Venezuela's natural resources.
The oil, the gas, the gold.
All of it.
And his request to Putin was incredibly specific. This wasn't for cash or economic relief, was it?
No. This was for military muscle. Hardware you need to fight a direct external enemy.
What was on the list?
The formal request sent to the Kremlin included 3 critical things. First, new advanced missile systems.
Okay.
Second, big upgrades for his existing radar systems, which you absolutely need for air defense. And third, critical repairs for his Russian-made Sukhoi fighter jets.
His main air power deterrent.
Essentially, yes. He's clearly trying to project strength, too. Maduro has often boasted about his arsenal, claiming Venezuela has over 5,000 Russian Igla-S anti-aircraft missiles.
Which are what, exactly?
The Igla-S is a man-pads, a man-portable air defense system. It's exactly the kind of weapon you'd want to deter low-flying aircraft or helicopters in an intervention.
So his requests are clearly tactical. They're designed to counter the exact kind of threat the U.S. is projecting.
Precisely. Which brings us back to the central question. Russia and Venezuela signed a strategic partnership treaty this year. So does Russia actually have the capacity to deliver?
And that's where this gets really interesting. The sources we have paint a picture of a partner stretched, well, beyond the breaking point. This is the Russia reality check.
The situation in Ukraine just fundamentally changed everything for Russia. The sources are absolutely clear on this.
How so?
Russia's full-scale invasion, now grinding into its 3rd year, is consuming every available resource, financial, military, you name it. It has decisively shifted Moscow's priorities away from, distant clients like Venezuela.
Putin is fighting for survival much closer to home.
He is. And you can see this reflected in the military constraints. We know Russia has reportedly suspended the sale of arms to Latin American countries since 2022.
And that's not a choice. That's a capacity failure.
It is. They just do not have the spare capacity. Russia needs its drones, its missiles, its trained manpower for its own conflict. To ship the amount of hardware Venezuela is asking for, that would be a severe strain.
And the state of the Russian Navy might be the most telling detail in all of this.
It speaks volumes. The Russian Navy's surface fleet is basically described as crippled by the war. It just can't project meaningful power across the Atlantic anymore.
And there was a specific detail about their aircraft carrier.
Right. Get this. The crew of Russia's one and only aircraft carrier, the Admiral Kuznetsov, they've reportedly been sent to the front lines in Ukraine.
Wait, to fight as ground troops?
To fight as infantry.
Wow. Their only aircraft carrier, a huge symbol of naval power, is so non-operational that its trained crew is now fighting in trenches.
Precisely. You just don't do that unless you are prioritizing your immediate ground war over everything else. That one fact tells Maduro everything he needs to know about Russia's willingness to help them.
And what about the money? Moscow is showing some real economic constraint here, too.
Absolutely. When Maduro visited Moscow in August, he came home empty-handed. No new loans, no new funding.
That's a definite policy shift.
A huge one. Russia understands it cannot offer tangible support. Its priority allies are now China, Iran, and North Korea, the suppliers helping them sustain the war in Ukraine. Venezuela is just not on that list.
This should be a stark warning for Maduro. The sources mention the collapse of the Assad regime in Syria.
Yes, another long-standing Russian client. That collapse accelerated dramatically after Russia shifted its focus to Ukraine. It's a dangerous precedent. When Moscow's core priorities shift, its distant allies become instantly disposable.
So all Russia can offer is what? Rhetoric.
Rhetorical bluster and symbolic gestures.
Yeah.
We'll probably see some public musing about deploying missiles to Venezuela and Cuba, classic nuclear saber rattling. It looks good, but it doesn't require them to actually do anything.
This relationship, though, it runs deeper than just jets and missiles. It's fundamentally transactional, focused on helping two sanctioned regimes survive.
Right. It's a relationship built on political investment, but with dismal financial returns. Russia provided at least $34 billion in investments and loans to Venezuela up until 2018.
$34 billion. That's a huge number.
It shows how deep the political commitment once was. But critically, Russia completely stopped all new loans and investments by 2022.
And the returns are poor. The joint oil production with Russia has actually gone down, right?
It has. It dropped from about 125,000 barrels per day in 2022 to just 103,000 in 2024. But the debt is still there. Venezuela still owes Russia an estimated $1.5 billion.
So the real collaboration now is just innovation.
That's it. Finding ways around Western sanctions. We saw it with that binational bank, Evrofinance Mosnar Bank, which was basically just a tool for oil brokerage.
And the U.S. Treasury sanctioned it.
They did back in 2019. Now the focus has shifted to the financial underworld.
To cryptocurrency.
Exactly. Sanctioned regimes like Russia, Venezuela, and Iran are now using the cryptocurrency Tether, or USDT, for large untraceable transactions.
To bypass U.S. surveillance.
Completely. USDT is a stable coin pegged to the dollar, so it's a critical tool for them to keep access to the dollar-based economy when they're cut off from the global banking system. It's a strategy of last resort.
And on top of all that, there's the political humiliation. Venezuela desperately tried to join the BRICS group.
That was vital for Maduro's legitimacy. He needed that endorsement. But his 2024 bid was ultimately vetoed by Brazil,
A major regional power.
And Venezuelan officials called the rejection an inexplicable and immoral aggression. That kind of public snub shows that even the non-Western world is wary of fully embracing his regime.
So despite all these cooperation agreements, something like 23 meetings last year, the economic impact is minimal.
It is. The relationship is a facade. Maduro is propped up by corruption and Russian technical support for internal control surveillance gear, anti-protest equipment. They're helping him control his own people, not defend against the U.S. military.
So we've seen the full picture now. Maduro is facing intense, decisive pressure from Washington and has run to Moscow for salvation. But the evidence shows Russia, tied down in Ukraine, can only offer rhetoric, not the hardware or the money he needs.
And this deep dive really shows us that foreign policy isn't just about intentions or signing treaties. It's about actual capacity. Russia's decision to prioritize its war means its ability to act as a spoiler in the Western Hemisphere has been severely diminished.
It leaves its allies exposed.
Completely exposed. The U.S. policy of applying decisive pressure in the Caribbean appears to be working. It's isolating Maduro and forcing Russia to either abandon a partner or risk weakening its own war machine even further.
So what does this all mean for you and for the region? The U.S. is confronting a long-standing autocrat right on its doorstep, and the allies Maduro counted on are showing just how thin their commitment really is.
It means the dictator's lifeline is proving to be nothing more than a frayed piece of string that won't hold under pressure.
So consider this. If the only support you can count on is symbolic bluster and having to use untraceable cryptocurrency just to move money, how long can your regime possibly last when facing direct, sustained military pressure from a superpower committed to finally solving the problem?